So in this video we are going to model the teapot. We are also gonna work with reference materials, so we're gonna introduce how to do that. It's actually quite simple in Blender and it's very useful sometimes. But before we do that, let's have a look at the organization of our scene here. So up in the right corner here we have the saucer and we have our cup, and as I explained in the last video, these little eyes here toggle the visibility of the item, and they are all part of a collection. And if we press the eye on that one, of course we turn on and off the visibility for the entire collection. But what we want to do now is we want to create a new collection for our teapot. So let's press this little button up here that looks like a box with a plus sign on it, and let's rename this one to teapot. And after that, we want to add one more collection. Actually, we want to press plus here, and that would put that new collection in our teapot collection and give it number 1, because two things can't have the same name in the same collection. So let's move this up out of the way so it's in its own spot, and let's remove this name and rename it to reference material or reference image. There we go. And in this one, with this one marked, we want to import our reference image. So I googled around a little bit and I actually found an image of the teapot, or a version of the teapot that I had in the other reference image, which I can show here. So this. So let's import that. All I did was I googled Royal Doulton Tango pattern teapot, which is the name of that pattern over here. It's apparently called Tango pattern. And let's import, file, import, and images as planes. So let's press that one. And I have it here in this folder here, Art Deco Royal Doulton Tango pattern porcelain teapot. And there we go. We can't see it right now because it's here and it's kind of tiny. So let's press S and scale it up so we can see it. Here we go. There we have it. And let's look at from the top. So let's press the Z here on our little gimbal. We can see, yep, here we go. But I want to rotate this. So I want to rotate this in this direction here. So R, Z. And minus 90, I think. Yes. And then we want to rotate it so it flips up in this angle. So that would be R, Y, and minus 90 in this case. Here we go. And this is a bit too big for our cup, right? So let's scale it down a little bit and move it up with G and Z. And let's place it about the correct place. That looks pretty good actually, size-wise. We can always change the scale things later if it seems like it's too big. But let's keep it here, and let's turn off the visibility on our collection named collection, where we have our cup and our saucer. So we can't see that one anymore. And now we want to add a cylinder, and we want to do that in the teapot collection. So let's click on the teapot collection, and let's press Shift A, mesh, and choose cylinder. And let's make this 0.1 in its depth again, so it's kind of flat. And on the gimbal, press the little red dot, so we look at it straight from, well, I guess the right side it would be. Well, either way, from the front. And let's move our reference image slightly to the left. So let's click on it up here, press G and Y, so we only move it in the right and left, and let's place it somewhere in the middle. There we go. And let's go back to the cylinder, and let's scale this in the Y-axis so that it fits sort of around the bottom of the foot there. So the Now the picture is taken at an angle, so we just have to sort of approximate where things are supposed to go, but it'll help us. It'll help us along the way. So if I go ahead now and go into edit mode and look at the top and choose this face and press G and move it up, you will see that we can't really see the teapot from behind the cylinder. That makes it a little bit harder to work with reference material, but there is actually a way we can go about fixing that. So here to the right, this orange little tab over here that says object properties, if we go into that and then to viewport display, we can actually we can actually press this display as wire. And why is that a good idea? Well, if I now press G and Z, that means that we can see everything that's behind it. That's kind of good, because if we just change our viewport display shading properties to wireframe, then we wouldn't see our reference material. So let's go back here into shaded and let's start modeling. So I actually think that I want to move this up a tiny little bit. So G and Z in object mode, move it up a little bit, and then tab back into edit mode. And with the top face selected, let's press extrude and move it up a bit, and then S to scale it in a little bit, and then E to extrude again, a tiny little bit up, and then again E to extrude and scale it up. And I'm gonna place it basically at just at the bottom part of the handle here. We will need to make more edge loops later, but let's just make the basic shape of the pot now. So E to extrude again, move upwards and scale out somewhere around there, looks good. And E to extrude again all the way up here, and I'm actually not gonna scale it in just yet. So E to extrude again and then scale inwards, and E to extrude again and scale inwards, this time a bit more, and E to extrude and scale in, and then let's move that down with G and Z a tiny bit. That actually looks like it should be enough. And then Control R, and let's place a couple of edge loops around where we want to place our handle. I do want to place a little edge loop down here as well. That'll work good there. That one, yeah. So let's start working on the snout here. So let's go over to the gimbal up here and press Y so we can look at it from this edge. And we need to extrude these here. So let's mark them, and let's change from edge select to face select up here. You can also do that on the keyboard by pressing 1, 2, and 3. And we want the face select, so let's select these faces, go back on the gimbal on the red dot. You can also change your viewport by pressing the numpad keys, so with 4, 5, 6, 3, 9. I've always worked with the gimbal up here, so I'm just more comfortable with it, so that's why I keep doing it. And I forgot that we need to also select those two faces there. So let's go back in Y on the gimbal and select those, and back again to the red dot. And let's press extrude E and move it out a little bit. And we want to make sure that these follow the snout here on our reference image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press G and Z and move everything up a little bit. I'm also going to press rotate, so R and X, because that's the direction we're moving. We want to rotate it in, and then G and Z and move it down a tiny little bit, something like that. Yes. And now I'm actually going to press the middle mouse button on my mouse, and I am gonna change to edge select, and I want to select these edges that we have down here, these edges here, and these edges here, because I want to move them upwards here. So let's press that red dot again so that we're looking at it straight from a front, and move these in Shift X. So I press G and then Shift X to make sure that I'm not moving it in the X axis. I just want to move it in the Y and Z axis, and then I'll move it up somewhere around here. Should be pretty good. And then I'm gonna press middle mouse button and rotate up a bit, and I just want to select these two edges here, and let's go back to front view and G Shift X, so we only move it in the Z axis and Y axis. I'm gonna place it around there, and I actually also want to grab these two here and do the same thing. G Shift X and move it in just the Y and Z axis and place it around there. Yes, that looks pretty good. So back to face select on the bottom up here, or 3 on your keyboard. Rotate around a little bit, and let's select these faces over here. Back to front view. Let's press extrude and move them upwards. So GZ and then GY. Let's see if we can't get it around there, and let's press rotate with R, and we want to rotate it in the X axis. So there we go, and then scale it in with S a little bit, and let's move it with G Shift X and move it up just a bit, and R and X and rotate it a bit more and scale it in, and G and Shift X. So place it, I want to place it around here, I think. And let's see here. Yeah, it's getting a bit too thin there, so let's press scale and with S and X and scale it outwards a little bit. We don't want it too thin. That looks about right. And front view and E to extrude. And I want to extrude it in the Z axis now, not along the face. So I press Z on the keyboard, and let's move it up, and GY and move it inwards a little bit. That actually looks good enough. I do want to scale it down just a little bit, like that. Yeah, and GY and move it back just a little bit. Here we go, and let's press extrude again. This one time, let's just move it up with this one, because that looks pretty good actually. I do want to rotate it a little bit along the X-axis so that it matches the end there a bit more. GZ, let's move it down just a tiny bit. Here we go. So let's do ourselves a little favor here and go into modifiers, and let's select the subdivision surface modifier, and then go back into object properties and change from display as wire to textured, and tab out into object mode, just so we can get a feel for how it looks. And that is actually looking pretty good the way it is. So that's good. So let's go back here to wire, and let's turn off the subdivision modifier in our viewport by pressing this little button here that looks like a computer screen. And let's tab back into edit mode. So what we could do now is actually to start working on this part here, the handle. So let's do that. Yes. So let's look at it from the back side here, and let's take these ones over here. I think. Nope, not those two, but those two. And let's press extrude and move them out a bit, and GZ to move them up a bit, and let's scale it, and GZ to move it up a bit, and GY to move it out, and rotate it a little bit along the x-axis, and scale once more, and G to move it upwards. Here we go. There we go. And then we want to do the same thing up here, and they are coming, that one is coming out like that, so that should be those two over there. So let's press extrude, and this one has like a little lip there, so let's actually do like this. Let's do a loop cut around there like that, and let's then with Control R you do the loop cut and then press those two there selected, and let's extrude those. Extrude, and let's rotate along the x-axis like that. Yes, and E to extrude, move up here, and let's rotate it along the x-axis, and E to extrude again, so that we have a little lip or something along those lines up there. And let's mark these faces here from the one that we extruded earlier, and press extrude, Shift X, and let's move it upwards. And once more we need to rotate it a little bit, so R, X, and scale so that it fits. Something like that looks good. And E to extrude, Shift X so that we can place it wherever we want. Somewhere around there should be good enough. And rotate again along the x-axis. We go and scale it in just a little bit, and E to extrude and move it upwards. G, Shift X, and place it somewhere that looks good. That looks pretty good. Now we have 4 faces here, but we only have 2 faces here to connect. So what we should do here is actually just create a little edge loop here so we can connect all the faces to each other. So let's do that already. Let's press Control R on our keyboard and hold our mouse over this part here so we see the edge loop, and press down with the key, and let's move it up here. Around there should be pretty good. So let's go back and select these 4 faces here with face select on this little button up here. Let's select all these faces here, and let's extrude, and we can move it just upwards like this, and then rotate with R and X because we want to do that along the x-axis. G, Shift X, and move it along Y and Z axis to around here somewhere. Should actually be pretty good. I do, however, want to rotate these 2. Yeah, so let's select these 2 here, and let's rotate them a little bit upwards like this, and move them up as well with G and Z. Yeah, that'll be good. So let's select these 4 faces here, press delete on the keyboard, and only faces, and let's do the same thing here. Select these faces over here. The reason why we do this is because we want to connect these so they have a new set of outward faces. So let's just delete only faces. That means that we also need to delete these edges in here as well. So let's do edge select up here and select these 4 in here, delete edges, and do the same here. These 4, delete edges, And let's select all the edges around here. Ooh, not that one, and that one. And let's do the same down here. All the faces, edges along here. This. And then press F3 on your keyboard and you will get up this nice little context menu which you can search in, and type in bridge edge loops, which apparently I had already done earlier. So bridge edge loops, and press enter, and it'll connect them all and create faces for them. So there we go. That should be all the need I should have for the reference material, actually. Yes, so let's go into object properties and turn display as from wire to textured. And let's close our reference image visibility here. So there we go. And this doesn't look too pretty as of now, but we will fix that, don't worry. I want to fix this little lip here so that it actually has that nice little curvature. So let's do that. Let's take these two here and G and Shift X, and let's move it inwards a bit like that. And if we turn on our subdivision modifier in our viewport again by pressing this button over here, we will get an idea of how our air looks, and it's not looking all too shabby actually. This is actually looking pretty good. So let's go back in here. What I want to do here is I think that I actually just want to make a cut here and extrude a little bit more. So let's use the knife tool. You can either press K on the keyboard or go over here while in edit mode and press this button over here, this knife, and let's click on the edge here and hold down Control, and it'll place it along the middle of those edges, and click again and enter. Here we go. Now we have created two more faces just there. And let's change this to face select and this one to select box. And let's select these two over here. And first of all, let's see what happens if we just press G, Shift X. Yeah. It helped. And let's press E and extrude upwards a little bit, and S to scale it in a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to select those edges that are here that we can't really see right now. So let's turn off the subdivision modifier again in our viewport by pressing this button. And let's take these here and move them inwards with GY. And let's move them downwards a bit too with G and Z like that. And let's turn it on again and see, that looks a lot better. Yes, it does. Great. And for some reason my entire model is very, very flat, but we can fix that. So let's have a look from the top view over here and press S and scale everything in the x-axis. Here we go. That looks very good. So let's continue. So what's next? Well, we do want to make this part more rounded, and we also want to make parts of this a bit thinner. Let's begin with this one over here. Let's take these edges up here all the way around. not all the way around, but all the way there. And let's scale them in the x-axis. So let's scale them in a bit, quite a bit actually. And let's take these ones that are here in the middle, including this one here. And let's move them first upwards, so G and Z, like that. And then G and Y, so they go in a little bit like that. Gives it a bit more of a rounded edge. This one, however, needs to go outward as well. So let's choose vertices selection mode and just select that one and move it outwards a bit. And the same with this one, G and Y. And this one in here that we can't really see, that is in there, should also be moved out. So G and Y, and move it out. And we could actually do that all the way around, G, Y, and this one as well, G, Y, and this one as well, G, Y, but this one also needs to be moved down a bit, so G and Z, and move it down a bit. And the same goes for this one, G, Z, move it down a little bit. We'll give it a bit more of a rounded edge. And this is still way too thick here and way too thin here. So let's grab these ones over here. We can do edge select actually on these ones. So let's select that one all the way there. This one all the way there. And let's see here. These ones also actually. Yeah. And let's scale them in the x-axis, so S and X. And let's scale them in. A lot better. Yes, a lot better. Yeah, I think that is good for now. We could actually move these vertices already. So let's take these ones here and G and Y and move them a bit backwards. Or move them back a bit. And take these ones over here and let's scale them in on the x-axis just a little bit. That looks pretty good. And let's put some attention on the snout as well. So we want this to be a bit more rounded. So let's see if we can't fix that. So let's go into edge select and let's select these edges here on the bottom part here. And let's scale them in. So S and X and scale them in. And let's take these ones at the top here. These ones here as well. And let's see here. I think I accidentally selected another edge in there. So let's go here and select this one and that one. And let's scale them along x-axis. Scale them in a bit. There we go. And let's see here. Still looks a bit thick up there, so but we can fix that. So let's select these edge loops here. So select it, Shift Alt and click the next one, and we can do the same here. Click with Alt Shift to select the entire edge loop, and let's do the same up here. But this one won't let me select the entire one, so Alt Shift and then I'll just shift click the rest of them. And let's just scale them by just pressing S and just scale them in a little bit. That looks better, I think. Yes, it is. And we can actually take these ones up here by Alt Shift select and then Shift select these 4 here, and let's just move them up a little bit, so G and Z like that. Yes. And I want to actually make it a bit more round here as well, so I'm gonna grab, not that one, these ones over here and these ones over here, and I'm gonna scale them along the x-axis a little bit, so S and X, and scale them outwards a little bit. Makes it even more rounded. And let's take these ones here, because they are further out than this middle one, and let's move them in a little bit. Same, these ones here, and the same on the other side, so these ones here, and press G and Y and move them forward a little bit like that, and then G and Z and move them downwards just a tiny little bit. And we should actually do the same with these ones here. They should be moved inwards a little bit and probably upwards as well. So let's select these here, G and Y, and move them inwards just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit, and then GZ up just a tiny bit. Yes, that looks a lot better. And let's make sure that this model isn't solid anymore. Yeah, I think we're at, let's just see how it looks over here. Yeah, this here doesn't look too good. So let's press vertices select up here, press that vertices and G and Z and move it upwards a bit. And let's turn that on again. Much better. Yes. So let's make a hole, or 3. So let's press this one, press delete with face select of course, and only faces. And the same for this one down here. Delete only faces. And the same one here with these 4 here. 6 apparently. Yeah, 6, of course, 6. Delete and only faces. And then we need to clean up these edges as well. So edge select, and let's press shift click on all of these here. Not that one, that one. And delete edges. Here we go. Now let's add, let's see here. First of all, I think I actually want to give this foot, yeah, I want to close these 2 off. So let's select this edge loop by Alt Shift clicking and press F, and then this edge loop here, press Alt Shift and click, so you select the entire edge and press F there again so that we have filled those in. Let's see here. Yes. Now we should be able to add our solidify modifier again, and let's place that above the subdivision modifier by clicking on this little arrow over here so you can move it up. And we want to add 0.08 again, like we did with the cup. Let's see here. That looks good over there. Does it look good over here? It actually does. And over there as well. Over here it looks a bit weird, but that is because it just ends here and we haven't added any additional loop cuts. We will do that soon. But first of all, I just want to make sure that all of our faces are pointing in the right direction, because sometimes when you do models, some faces can for some reason turn themselves in the other direction, so they're pointing inwards instead of outwards, and therefore they aren't rendering correctly. So let's do that. We can click on this little button up here, overlays, and that'll open up this, and then we can press this little button here, face orientation. And if everything is blue, that means that it's good. If you have anything that's red, that means that the face is turned inwards. If that would be the case, that it's turned inwards, you can always press A to select all, go to Mesh, Normals, and recalculate outside. That means that it turns every face outwards. All right, so let's fix the edge of this snout here. So while having your mouse around here, press Ctrl R to create an edge loop and move it up almost all the way up. Like that. And there we go. Now it's more accentuated, I think it's called. And let's see here. Need to have a quick look at the reference image. So let's turn that on again. That is pretty close. That is pretty darn close. We might want to have a bit more of a curvature here. So let's do that. Let's add a loop cut over here, and let's press G, Shift X, and move it outwards a little bit like that. And let's grab this one with Alt Shift and select, so we grab the entire edge loop, and G, Shift X, and then move it along like this a bit. We want this part over here. Let's see here. Let's select these edges here, Alt Shift and Alt Shift, and let's rotate them along the X-axis a little bit like that. And let's see here, if I just scale this along every axis except X by pressing Shift X, I should be able to make the opening just a little bit bigger. So let's turn off our reference image again. It looks pretty good. We have ourselves a teapot. But let's make it even nicer. So let's go here and select the entire edge loop down here by pressing Alt Shift and click, and let's press E and S, and let's scale this inwards, and G and Z, and let's move it downwards a little bit, because what we're aiming for is a bit of a rounded foot. We want to scale that out a bit, so S again and scale it out a little bit like that. That looks very nice. And Control R, and up here we want to create an edge loop somewhere around there, and G and Z, and move it down a bit so we get a bit of a foot. Let's scale it in a bit as well, so S and scale it in just a tiny bit. Yes, that looks nice. Let's see here, if we add an object and shading, shade smooth, how does this look? That doesn't look too good over there at all for some reason. So let's go in and see what we can do about that. Control R, edge loop, and move it down. See if we can't fix this. Control R, edge loop, and move it up. Let's see here. I think I know what's wrong. It's these ones here. So let's turn off subdivision modifier for a moment, and let's in object mode press shade flat again, and let's see here. I think it's actually these ones here that are making it look weird. So let's see here. Turn off fire as well. So let's see here. Only faces and only faces, and remove those, and let's just have a look here, see what happened. So let's turn on subdivision and solidify again, and let's see. if we press object and shade smooth. Yeah, now it looks all right. So if I yeah, that is the reason. So let's do like this. Let's apply solidify right now because we don't need to work with it anymore. So let's tab out into object mode, press apply and tab in again, and then select this one over here, Alt Shift, the entire loop cut, press F, and this one, Alt Shift, the entire loop cut, and press F, and let's just see. Yep, that was the issue. I still have an issue in here though, but if I press on this one here, edit, face select, press I, let's see here, yep, and I again. Here we go. That fixed that right up. So what I did here is I created another inset, scale it down a bit, and another inset again, just to help the subdivision surface make a nice flat bottom in here. And we should actually do the same here as well, because you can see that this doesn't look correctly. This is on the other side of the model, so it wouldn't necessarily be visible, but let's make sure that we do things so they look nice from all angles. So let's press I and move it inwards a bit, and let's press I again and move it inwards a bit, and then A to select all, just to make sure that all our faces are in the correct direction. Press normals and recalculate outside. There we go. Does however look like that one is pointing in the wrong direction, so let's double check that face orientation. Yes, it is pointing in the wrong direction. So this is how it looks when a normal isn't in the right direction, but let's fix that. Let's tab in and let's select all of these faces here. We can do that with the circle select, so press C on your keyboard, hold down shift and select all of them. And let's see here. Oh, sorry, I did wrong. So C and just click and hold and drag around, and let's select all of them. To get out of circle select, you either press ESC or the right mouse button. So with all of them selected, let's go into mesh in the menu over here, normals, and flip. Here we go. It's in the correct orientation now. So let's see if we can make this top up here. So let's turn off face orientation, because now we know that everything here is looking nice. And let's go in here and let's add a loop cut. So Control R, click, move it inwards a little bit like this, and let's select the top faces here. Control Shift, and let's work our way around here. There we go. And let's press extrude and move upwards. And let's scale the inner edge of this inwards a little bit. So let's press edge select, click on the edge, Alt Shift, select the entire loop cut, scale it inwards a little bit. Here we go. And we want this part here to be golden, because that is what we have in our reference image over here. And we can also see that there is a lip going inwards around the top there. Let's go back, tab in, and let's see here. Let's turn that off. And this part here, this little edge here. So I just turned off the subdivision modifier in the viewport. So Alt Shift and select this one here, and let's scale that in with S like this. And let's add the subdivision modifier again. There we go. That looks pretty darn good. But I do want this edge here to be a little bit sharper. So let's add another loop cut. So Control R out here, click and move it in just a tiny bit. There we go. That looks pretty darn good. We might as well actually make sure that this part here is golden now. So let's select some faces. So click face select up here and Control Shift, and let's work our way around with Control Shift. Here we go, and let's take these parts up here as well. Let's select all the way around and material, press a new material and click on this little icon here. We should be able to click on gold because we created that earlier, and as you can see everything becomes golden. We don't want that, so press assign and then, like we did last time, select invert and press the plus button for another material slot. Press this one and choose porcelain and assign. There we go. We are moving forward. So let's make sure that this part here is golden as well, because it is so in the reference material. So let's select these ones over here. Like that. And press on gold here and assign. And there we go. We have ourselves a golden edge there. We also want the top part of this and a bit of the side here to be golden. So let's go back in with tab in edit mode. And let's see if we can't find a good way of placing a golden line here. We could actually do like this. Let's press this button here, Control R, I mean, and let's place a loop cut right there. And also, let's see here. This will actually probably be pretty good. So let's select, let's have a quick look at the reference image here again. Let's see. Let's go back here. I don't want it to go all the way up here. I actually want it to start here. So let's select the faces from here. Like that. And let's see here. Let's select these faces here. Let's turn off solidifier for now, as a subdivision surface for now. So let's turn it off in the viewport so we can see what we're doing. And let's see here, where do we stop? We stop there. So there we go. These ones here. That looks about right. And let's click on materials here, gold, and assign. And let's turn on our subdivision modifier again here in the viewport. Let's see how that looks. I do see now that here we have two edges or vertices poking out. So let's select these here. See if we can't grab these vertices here. Let's click wireframe, and let's see here, that one, and that one. Let's go back into shaded up here and GZ and just move them in. Here we go, so they're not poking out. And I want this here to have a nice flow into that one. So I'm gonna take these two edges, vertices here, and these two vertices here, and I'm gonna move them backwards and a bit upwards. So G Shift X, and move them backwards a little bit and upwards a little bit, like that. And this one here and this one here, I think I need to scale them in a bit. Yeah, so SX and scale them in just a tiny bit. So we have a rounded edge there. And then let's move these ones forward. These two here. So G and Shift X, and let's move it them forward a little bit like this. There we go. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Upon realizing that we were nearing the 1 hour mark, I decided to end the video here. In the next one, we will do the lid and continue adding detail and refine the teapot model. See you in the next one.